This meeting has been posted in accordance with the Open Records Law. Attendance roll call.
Mrs. Blair.
Here.
Mrs. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Hyde.
Here.
Mr. Schrader is excused. Mr. Bowman. Mr. Buckmaster is here. Mr. Podvolsky.
Present.
We have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Trace, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On item 1E, approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 2, consent agenda. Could I have a motion for the consent agenda? So moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
Anything in consent agenda that needs separate consideration or has questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved unanimously. Item 3, student representation. We have a guest.
Hello, I'm Neil Parker, speaking for Council. All right, so a couple things today. The Muskego High School Choir will be performing their Master's concert on Wednesday. We're all pretty excited. The girls' track and field team has a meet at Waukesha South, and the boys' track and field team has a meet at Oconomowoc. Both of these are on Thursday, and they also have another meet on Saturday at UW Parkside. Last Tuesday, juniors traveled to Waukesha North High School to meet over 80 college and military reps. And finally, Muskego High School was extremely proud to continue the Spread the Word to End the Word campaign, promoting inclusion of every MHS student. Thank you.
Any questions? Where she runs off? Now that she ran off, you got to come up with questions. I learn to wait. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 4, public forum. This is your opportunity to present anything to the school board that you feel needs attention. Come on, girls. You all look like you got something you want to say to us. All right. Hearing none, moving on to item 5, superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, we have the pleasure of recognizing 2 groups. The first is our Cole Fellow winners, and so Lori and Gina, would you like to take this? So we have certificates for each of you. So come on up.
Come on,
Okay.
don't be shy.
Closer.
So we have a certificate of appreciation for each of you. And it states, the Muskego Norway School Board congratulates Muskego Lakes Middle School teacher Lori Staniszewski. Sorry. You know, with a ski on the end of my last name, I should be good with all these, and I'm just not. I'm being named by the Herb Cole Educational Foundation as a 2019 recipient of the Herb Cole Teacher Fellowship. To be considered for this prestigious award, teachers must be nominated by students, parents, or other teachers, community members, or administrators. A rigorous screening process is conducted by a statewide committee of civic leaders, education-related groups, and program sponsors who review the multitude of nominees from which only a few are selected. Lori was identified as a teacher who exhibits superior ability to inspire a love of learning in her students, the ability to motivate others, along with leadership and service within and outside the classroom. The Muskego Norway School Board hereby commends Lori for her exceptional teaching ability that brings honor not only to herself, but to the Muskego Norway community and to her students to learn, grow, and succeed. And it's signed this date by the officers of the board. Congratulations. It's the same. To get one person, to get one of these in the district is an honor. To have both of you do this is really amazing. So, Gina, I'm going to have to butcher your last name. Rokeski? Who calls it? Rosheski. Congratulations.
Come on up. Here we go.
I have paparazzi.
You want to be in the picture, Rachel?
No.
down with that. Rachel, did you want to say anything, or you don't? Rachel was the one that nominated them.
Ah,
Good?
congratulations.
They're just phenomenal teachers. They change lives every day, so I'm really proud.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to recognize them at the state level as well. I know it's a lot of effort. So, thank you and congratulations. Now it's time for some student recognition. We have our wonderful gymnastics team here, led by Coach Katie. So if you want to come on up. And then, so if you guys want to stand here, we'll give you each a certificate. Did you want to say anything before we get started? Or you just wanted to say thank you? Yeah. All right.
She's excited. It's like, you're going to make me talk?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, those. So we have certificates for
I'm just going to take this list.
each of you. And I'll read it. So, Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskego Norway School Board hereby commends Therese, is it Myson? Mishan? Sorry. for her contributions in the area that, for her contribution to the area team that competed in the 2019 WIA Girls Gymnastics State Tournament. The team composed of members from the Muskego Norway Schools, Franklin Public Schools, Whitnall, and Oak Creek School Districts demonstrated skill and exceptional cooperative team spirit by winning the 2019 WIA State Girls Team Gymnastics Championship. This team contributed to the record of past FMOW teams by earning the first place title for the 8th time in the last 9 years. That's just incredible. The Muskego Norway School Board commends the girls gymnastics team for its perseverance and commitment to excellence that has brought honor to each member, their families, the Muskego Norway schools, and the FMOW communities. The Muskego Norway School Board wishes Teresa success in her future education and career endeavors, and it's dated today and signed by the board officers. So congratulations. And then we have an identical one, except it's for Emily Roshan. Thanks. And then we have one for Elizabeth Mishan. I just had that one. But Elizabeth also placed 6th on the floor competition as well. So congratulations. Crystal Nelson. All right. Elizabeth Wong.
That's okay.
And she also placed 3rd on the bars. So congratulations. Grace, we will get you.
Sorry, we will get you your certificate. So, yeah.
Take Crystal's.
You can take Crystal's.
Yeah.
No, we will get you yours, but congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations, ladies. You guys have quite the dynasty. Is there any sports team in the WIA that's been as dominant as you guys?
That's a good question. I don't really know.
Katie, can you guys perform this year?
No, and this is our last season. There's a new WIA rule regarding co-ops, and so as FMOW, we will not be able to qualify to the team competition. Next.
Really? So what are they? What are they changing the rules?
The rule is you can only have a maximum of 2 schools co-oping.
Okay.
So we could change our co-op, or we could just not compete for the team title. So at this point, we're going to stay together because it doesn't look like we'll get to all 4 schools would get to participate singularly, just budgets and things like that. So we're going to stay together and hope they change the rule.
Sure sounds like it was targeted.
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very doing that for hockey too?
Okay, so, 1 second. The next item is co-curricular annual report. So we have Ryan McMillan, our esteemed AD, here to provide you with an update or a review just of the year and look ahead. Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. It's a great night. Celebrating dynasties and yeah, is there any way we could pop that PowerPoint or just PDF up? Good night, ladies.
Good night, ladies. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thursday.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm just going to take a few moments of your time and just talk about a few highlights over the course of the last school year, from really March of 18 to where we are now today. And again, I just want to come back and touch on our mission statement is basically to be the best, and we're continuing to work to get there. District of choice, and again, trying to get all programs working as one warrior, which I know all of you have heard by now, and we've done a great job, I think, of spreading that message. We had great buy-in from all of our programs as we will get there here in a little bit. Home of the state champions, hopefully we don't mind that. Going back to our why are co-curricular so important? And again, going back to probably a year and a half or 2 years now, the strategic planning survey, the highest responses of what are you most proud about and how do you gauge the quality of a district, it all comes back to our athletics and activities programs and the success that those programs have. And I think coming up, we'll talk about the gala night here in a little bit, but we saw that pride firsthand last Thursday night over Mosquito Lakes Country Club with the business district and our students and various other community members. I think it was, the bridge has been built, and it is very cool to see, and it had a great feel to it. And I'm unaware of any other places that have something like that cooking right now, and it's pretty special. So don't take it for granted, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell you. When we start talking about academic achievement, co-curricular is #1 indicator of academic success. These are the data that I've shared with our incoming 8th graders the last 2 nights at our 8th grade orientation in January with our families that come in to MHS. And again, if your kids are involved in co-curriculars, they are going to succeed. It's not a matter of if, they are going to. And the data backs it up with ACTs, almost 5 points, 4 points. That's the difference between high-achieving, rigorous colleges or college admission for some kids, and everything down to GPA to the freshmen who are just getting their start at MHS. So pretty powerful piece of data to drive our decisions and continue our mission and understanding our why. Why do we do what we do, and why do we keep working to make our co-curriculars better? And I know Principal Irvine appreciates it as well. Community investment. So as over the course of last year, we've tried to, again, sometimes with athletics in particular, not always activities, but athletics in particular, within a community, there can be animosity between the programming and the community in general. And we've worked hard at trying to break down any barriers and build bridges and bring our community into MHS and see the buy-in and the investment. And from our digital communications campaign, where we had the community fund 2 new digital boards for our premier venues in campus, to the Warrior Winterizer, where we invited the community in. We didn't have to. We chose to, and put our student athletes in a position to serve the community and become waiters and waitresses and security and maintenance crews and custodial type staff and set up and take down, and it was amazing to see what a group of motivated young student athletes can do. And they weren't getting anything for them. They weren't getting paid. They weren't getting told they have to. They volunteered to. And in the middle of February, just after the polar vortex, we again give our community something to do and throw some bags, and their students hanging out all night, and they were getting silly with it and having fun. But I think it was a great interaction again between our community and our student athletes, and it was great to see. Parent exit surveys. We started asking our parents for feedback on our programming, which doesn't always happen, and I think it's very important. And as parents leave our programs after their 4th year and complete their senior years, we're asking them for a total program experience and what are their thoughts, how do they feel we can get better, and just another data entry point to take a look at how can we continue to get better. And I think it's been very positively received, and it's been very reflective too, because you think, a lot of people think it's always negative from the parents. Well, not always. You get a lot of good positive feedback as well, and you just got to ask the question and be willing to live with the answers that you get. So, but we're in a good place, and it's been positive. I'm happy that we started that process this school year. And then the gala night with the networking and celebrations and watching our business district take pride in what's going on in Muskego. Really, it felt like Muskego High School and co-curriculars in general kind of hijacked the event from the business district, which
we wanted that.
Which is okay. It was a lot of fun, and I felt bad for the Marquette student that had to sit there and listen to how great Muskego was all night. But
I didn't feel bad at all.
it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and the neat part about it is the best is yet to come. I mean, we're just scratching the surface, and we're going to continue to build, and we're not going to stop yet. I shared this with our families, I think just noting the calendar year of 2018, which our business district celebrated for us again last Thursday with the 6 state championships is very unique. I don't know of any place around the state that's had something like that. I've seen people win, a lot of state champions before, but not all in one calendar year, which, I don't know, just it's neat to see, and I think our families at 8th grade orientation were kind of blown away by it and took a lot of pride in what we had to offer. And I don't know that anybody came in that night. I don't know that we lost anybody. I think whoever was presenting in the PAC did a pretty nice job as a backup to the main presenter down in the Sale Gym, and it was pretty good night. But the One Warrior Initiative, you've heard about this, again, building that community, building that one vision out of ourselves and into really Muskego. And we're representing Muskego, and at the end of the day, it's about the name on the front of the jersey as opposed to the name on the back, and trying to get everybody to get together. And a lot of times people can be very tunnel visioned across co-curricular programming, and I think we're starting to break down that wall between programs. We're starting to work together, and it's catching on, and the kids are starting to have a lot of fun with it too, where they've started some breakdowns and things at the end of their team practices and games, and they might be mocking me a little bit because I might be a little bit over the top with the One Warrior Initiative, but they're still into it too, so it's pretty fun to watch them and see them do. I wanted to talk about the One Warrior Nights here a little bit. We've started, some folks have asked us what this is. This started just this year. Started organically from our coaches when we've had our coaches meetings, coaches corners if you will, and getting together. We started to think about how can we get our students to start supporting our students again and get out of themselves and into the team and into the One Warrior. So what we've tried to do is create an event. We can't get to every event. No, none of our student athletes can get to every single one event if they're competing in another event, but can we make a commitment to each other to at least show up at least once across the board, regardless of what the program is or where the program's at, whether it's in Brookfield for a girls ice hockey game or Altius for a gymnastics or right at home in the Sale Gym this past winter. Can we make the trip, and can we show up in students supporting students? And I think as we get this going, it started, we had a very powerful night with girls tennis, I remember in the fall, where we actually had coaches who had to turn around and coach up a lot of our younger male student athletes on how to support appropriately, because they wanted to make noise, they were getting excited, and we had to teach them when to cheer and when not to cheer. But it was a great learning curve for those young student athletes too that probably would never have gone to a girls tennis meet had we not started doing this. And the cool thing is it came from the coaches. It didn't necessarily come from me, but we've tried to Brandon to create that wave of warriors and bring the energy into the facilities and keep things moving. And those are our spring events, so if you start hearing the term One Warrior Night thrown around, or you're following Twitter and you see it's One Warrior Night, spread the word and let's try and pack the house with our community at least once for whatever that event might be, whether it's good or bad too. We've talked about it with our leadership council. It doesn't matter. It's easy to come when we're winning a whole bunch of games and we're the best and we can wave the flag. It's a little bit different if we're not. But how do we continue to support regardless of the situation and bring that energy to each and every one of our student athletes and keep the process going. So we're getting better at it. It's a new initiative though that's starting to take off. Speaking of our Leadership Council, building off of Principal's Cabinet, we started the Leadership Council this year comprised of 50 student athletes, all grades, all programs represented. And we've had some very powerful conversations in terms of how can we help drive academic achievement. What are incentives that kids would look for to do better on the ACT? What are incentives that kids would think are awesome to come to a One Warrior Night? And how do we continue to, again, bridge that gap and make shared leadership decisions that we might have something administratively and bring it down to the student level and let them help drive the decision-making process and how we want to do what we want to do and those type of things. And I think our next one coming up next week, we're going to talk a little bit about potentially creating a leadership mural type thing and getting influential figures across our world and sport and in our society that can help drive some of the decisions of our young ones that keep going. So we'll see where that goes. And again, it's organically created, but it's been very positive as we move forward. This is our new Winter Champions photo. We took why did I put this photo in there? Because we took it in our pool. First time we had the facility to be able to take a nice, beautiful black and red photo representing our One Warriors and our champions. And FBLA and all the other groups that are included in this photo today, it's pretty cool to see where we're getting to. And hopefully, in the future, we start doing One Warrior Nights at the musical events. And maybe we open up a practice to the rest of our students and we bring them in and bring some energy before the real deal gets going up in the PAC. And there's multiple different steps, I think, that we can see in the future that we'll continue to work to get to. The really next steps is continue to improve our facilities, as I think we're talking a little bit more about tonight. As we keep moving forward, we'll continue to bridge that gap to get our community to invest in our school system, however they feel most comfortable doing that, but finding a way for them to do that. Analyzing our funding structures and making sure we're maximizing everything that we have and don't have, and how can we work to again, gain investment to get what we need. And then continue to recruit the best that are out there, teacher, coaches, and can't go enough. Can't understate that dual threat teacher-coach or teacher advisor, however you want to say that, but a teacher is doing more than just showing up and teaching every day, connecting with kids outside of the classroom and continuing to have that extension of the classroom. I think we're willing to do whatever we have to do, and let me know if you got an opening. I'll go find you the best one out there if I possibly can. And you don't have to pay me for it either. It's just it's fun to do. So we didn't come this far to only come this far, and we're going to continue to look at what's most important for Muskego and push ourselves to be the best warrior that we can be. Any questions?
Actually, you were mentioning the teacher coaches. What is the percentage of our coaches that are teachers versus outside coaches?
Teachers in the district, you mean?
Yeah.
Great question. I don't know that I have an accurate answer off the top of my head, HR-wise.
We did at one point, and it was high, but it was high.
Higher than 50%?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't remember because of all the advisors are primarily. But are you talking about just sports coaches?
Yeah, sports coaches.
Okay.
I know a lot of my kids are in sports. Only a couple are teacher coaches. Mm-hmm. So I was just curious if maybe it's different sports.
As high as we like.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Absolute advantage when you have really strong, influential voices that are not. I mean, the platform that you have as an advisor or a coach opens up some doors to students' hearts and minds in ways. And when that same influential person is also in the classroom, it just adds more contact and more influence on the students. And
as time goes, it's going to continue to get harder to find good quality teachers, and it's going to be even harder to find the good quality teacher coaches. But if you're willing to have some conversations and make connections and build relationships, we'll get them, because we got a great thing going here in Muskego.
So I myself agree that it's an advantage to have a coach that's in the building, but I believe stronger in just you hire the best coach, period. So there's some coaches that, they can make it up, that loss of not being in the building by being they're that better, much better of a person. So, it's sometimes I've seen in the past where we've looked to try to limit it to teachers in the building or teachers that are going to be in our system. And
we don't do that anymore. We open
I know
it
we
up
don't.
wide open, and we take a look at anybody and everybody.
No, I know we don't. I'm just talking, one thing I have here is some history. I've seen that, so.
That's fair. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Don't forget, swim team, 4 years. Okay.
Huh?
The last superintendent's report item is the contributions to the profession, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to other reports, President's report. Something I was going to bring up. Could not have been that important that I can't remember it. So we'll move on to Board of Canvassers for April 2nd. That'd be a clerk's report, I'm guessing.
So we're looking for a board of canvassers, which the clerk chairs. We need 2 individuals who are willing to come. Usually we work it out with DAR sometime that week after the election. We formalize and tabulate all the results and then certify them. So we're looking for 2 board members, if possible, that would be willing to serve on the board of canvassers
And when
for
do you
the
typically
upcoming
do it?
election. We can work that out the time. It's that week after the election.
But typically you try to do it with, Dar's here, right? So-
Correct, right.
Typically, it would be on the Monday after the election, because then all the provisional ballots that make up
yes.
the city would have to have been received by Friday.
But we have to have it done by when?
It has to start no later than the Tuesday following the election.
Okay.
It must be completed by 4 o'clock that day. So
Okay.
typically in the last few years, we've been getting together on Monday. But
Okay.
I can do it on Monday.
Okay. And we can work out a time with DAR and stuff. Anybody else?
If you can't get anyone, I can do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other board member reports?
I've got 2 things. The first one is concerning our Cole Fellow recipients. For 4 out of the last 5 years, I've read a number of them, whether it was teachers or principals. Yeah. This year I had building administrators.
Okay.
And the difference between a lot of us, most of them, is just, it really takes a lot to stand out. They're all that good. So the fact that we had 2 that won it was just phenomenal.
And in the same building.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just incredible that they did such a great job, especially a lot of it comes down to what you present to the readers, not just what you've done. So congratulations to them on doing not only a good job as a teacher, but for presenting their applications as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, last week I attended the Day at the Capitol, sponsored by the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And we heard from Tony Evers' team for the budget, and they're really pushing to do his fair funding formula. And we talked to the Republican side, and all of the people that are associated with our district, all the senators and legislators, other assemblymen, are all on the Republican side, and they said there will be some increased funding. They're just not sure how. They don't anticipate the fair funding formula being fully implemented because they don't feel it's going to distribute the funds that evenly. But there will be something coming down the road. There will be some increases, so it's just a matter of when. And that's about most of what we talked about. So that's about it.
Thank you.
Any other board member reports? All right. Moving on to resolution action item 7A, transportation contract.
Motion to approve Dairyland as vendor for the transportation contract for the period August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2024.
Could someone make that motion, please?
Mr. Moore.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Do you want to go over how we came to this?
So we had discussed at last week's meeting, we had gone through the process that we went through. So we had a small committee that reviewed all of the RFPs. We had 4 vendors that bid on the contract. Dairyland First, Student Go Right Way, and Lamers. We interviewed all 4 companies, and the committee then went through a selection process based on a number of criteria to determine who we best felt would provide the best service for our families and for the district moving forward. Again, the recommendation is Dairyland, and as we went through all the costing proposals, they weren't necessarily the lowest bidder. However, we did discuss the other criteria that were a large factor in making that selection. So our recommendation is to move forward with them. It is a 5-year contract, and we'll be working on the details of the contract, but it'll be based on the RFP that we sent out. And we'll likely move forward with a contract in which we're actually purchasing fuel for the buses through the district so that we can save on the cost of taxes and everything moving forward, and then establish a 5-year contract with options into the future.
We have Dairyland.
And they are here, yes. I don't know if you had any questions for them, or if you wanted them to say anything, or if they're happy to be in the audience as well.
Where's the terminal going to be located again?
That is up to the company to work through. It's one of the expectations of the RFP that they have a terminal within Muskego. But if you want to come see.
I mean, I know it's convenient to have it within district, but...
Well,
it was one of the requirements.
It's our requirement.
Oh, it was part of the RFP?
It's always, yeah, it's board policy.
Okay.
And you guys have, is it okay if they talk?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys have some sort of communication tool, app, or something so that families can view like what's going on with the buses and stuff, is that correct?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Jordan.
Yeah, if you could talk to the microphone. So sorry.
We also have
millions of
Mike
viewers.
Goff, who's our Vice President of Operations, and Carrie Hinton, who's our Finance Director. We do have an app. One of the components of the RFP was, I know the board was considering utilization of GPS in the buses. With that, if that's chosen, we do have an app that does allow for the bus to tell parent or whatnot where the bus is in reference to the child's stop in real time and continue to update. Also has some mechanisms as well for instant alerts or messaging to go out through that as well.
Any other questions?
Did we talk about last time about if you guys have cameras on buses?
We do. All of our buses will have cameras. We utilize a 4-camera system on the full-size buses and a 3-camera system on the smaller buses. The additional camera in the middle of a full-size bus to cover that gap, the length of the vehicle. And one of those cameras as well is forward-facing outside the windshield of the vehicle.
So the ones passing the buses, we can...
Yes, I don't know under Wisconsin law that's enforceable to utilize that, but certainly in the event, there's things going on, yeah, I would agree with you.
Maybe problem.
I thought there was the one citation that can be written under I thought a bus driver can swear that's when it's gone up with license.
Bus driver can sign a complaint against it. I just don't know if the footage forward-facing. There are also stop arm cameras that some states utilize as well. That's as technology continues to evolve, some of those things that are becoming more and more part of the normal equipment, if you will, in a school bus.
Now, are you anticipating the same amount of fleets of buses and stuff? And have you looked at like the area, like districting and trying to figure out routes and stuff? If it's going to be more or less buses? Or?
So right now, conceptually, we've planned to utilize the same number of buses that I think the current provider is utilizing. But part of, I think, perhaps your next item is a discussion on software. With our proposal, we included having our own in-house router, a permanent fixture in the staff to be able to not only optimize the routes, but out of the gate as well, take a look at the efficiency and see if there's any opportunity there to potentially consolidate routes or make them more efficient or change them a little bit. Anything we find, we'd certainly present to you guys simply as an option for what we found for you to consider.
I just know the kids hate it when the buses are so full that, like, if they wanted to go over to a friend's house, they can't, because there's So it's always kind of nice to have a couple seats available so that it's
Yeah,
possible.
those are all things that we'll look at as
Yeah.
we make the transition.
So one thing that came up today, and I'm curious of what, because you'll know the bus law. As my son was coming home from school today, a bus pulled over on the side of the road and let a child off with no flashing lights, no stop, no nothing. Just pulled over. So he ended up going around, and when he looked in his rearview mirror, kid got off the bus. Is that normal?
So there is Mike, help me out if you would. There are some. We do operate some buses in Milwaukee as well. The city has an ordinance where they actually do not allow you to use the 8-way school lights, even though the buses are all equipped. There's a certain, I believe it's an urban notion on certain roadways that 8-way school lights are not required to be utilized. Wouldn't say that I agree with it
Yeah, I think
as a
it's
person or a
horrible.
profession, but
Yeah, on Racine Avenue, on the hill. And there's not enough room for a bus to get all the way over. So it's, partially in traffic. You've got people coming down a hill, cars going around, kids getting off the bus. And they're elementary kids at that time. So it's my kid was shaking when he got home, thinking, I don't know if I did the right thing.
I don't know that particular stretch of roadway, but that's something as well as part of the routing, and not only for efficiency, we're looking at feedback from the drivers as well, or location safety management team or regional safety management team to be able to give us input there, so we can maybe make recommendations if a stop needs to be moved, added, changed, whatnot.
Yeah, I know that some people have said that they're on Racine Avenue, Racine Avenue is just a bad road. People drive too fast on it, and there's kids go from the same school. One kid gets dropped off on the side of the road they live on, and then a bus from the same exact school comes from the other side, and the kid has to cross over. When something like that, you would think they'd put the kid on the other bus. You wouldn't
I would
have to
agree.
have that.
Absence the school light debate, if you will, it's probably a roadway in a certain instance where we would recommend that you have right side drop-offs only to eliminate that.
Okay.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to working with you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 7B, transportation software.
Motion to approve TransFinder as vendor for transportation software contract at a cost of $27,560 for the first year of implementation. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Maybe you want to...
So we talked about this last week. We did review the 3 different companies. I believe TransFinder is the one that's most favorable to the things that we're looking for. And from talking with Mark, you have experience using TransFinder, so they're familiar with the software, and it'll be an easy transition. Moving forward to TransFinder. And again, in addition to what the bus can provide as far as GPS, there are options with parent portals that link into Infinite Campus. We have a lot of information and communication that can go right through IC. So parents will have that bus portal on IC, and we'll look to utilize that as part of the software as well.
Do you remember we talked last time if, like, for me as a child care provider, I don't have a child in the school, but I still have kids getting on and off a bus? It would be nice if I had access to know when that bus was coming as well.
I think that's going to be a parent permission request that we will have to look at, but that's one of the questions we have for the software vendor. But I think it's up to the parent to give that permission.
Yeah, they will. Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 7C, Master Planning 2.0 Community Survey.
Motion to approve the community survey as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so what we have attached is the revised survey for your review, and the estimated costs are included on those. A few costs are not.
Actually, those were updated.
They're updated.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Let's see. There was some adds to the master project list. So as you know, part of the project planning process was to include listen and learns with our staff as well as our leadership team. And so one item in particular was added, academic career planning, which, a small area for opportunities for guidance counselors as well as Jim Mischlig to meet with students around experiential learning and kind of creating those and supporting small groups of students in their academic planning process. So that was added. We don't know yet where exactly that's going to be, but we wanted to make sure we're, including that in the plan moving forward on the list. So that master plan list has been updated to reflect that. I'll have Julie go through the draft community survey as it's been changed, and then we'll talk about the pole vault. So if you want to open up the draft community survey document.
So this survey has gone through the editing department at School Perceptions, so there are a few small corrections that they made and they didn't notify us what those were. Tracy, the letter is rewritten at the beginning to beginning the survey to be written at a different grade level for reading. If you scroll through, again, we have listed out all of the different classrooms or all of the different projects, and one of the things that you'll note is the pricing. So these are the estimated costs that Bray has provided for each of the projects. And we had discussed when we sent out the survey to the community that those costs should be included so that they have an idea of what we're talking about, and it gives them a chance to really take in what that looks like from a priority perspective. Within the projects, as Kelly had mentioned, we have included that academic career planning piece, and that is factored into the projects here. One of the things that's not factored in, if you go down to resurface track, that resurface and track and pole vault was actually what it was before, and we'll be talking on the next agenda item about pole vault. It was a project that was on our list. We've taken it off the survey because we feel that internally we have funds to support the cost of that project, and Ryan and Todd are both here to talk a little bit more about the details of that project, but felt that we should pull it off the survey if we're going to be discussing it, regardless of survey outcomes.
Do you think the pricing that you're putting, the estimated, like let's just say the building the community ice center?
Sure.
You have $8,800,000. Do you think people would rather understand it more if it was 8.8 M? Like without all the.
We can do it however
I don't know. What do you guys
prefer.
think? Because I think it's just such a big number.
That is scary.
Well, I think it is a big number, so we should see it.
Well, I just don't want it to be kind of confused with, like, the tennis court one is only 300,000. I just don't know if all those numbers are too much. I don't know.
I think it's important that they get the magnitude of what you're looking at myself. I think anyone who's glancing at this can, if anything, it's going to help the tennis court because it is so much smaller than everything else. Oh, we're going to afford that one.
High priority.
I just don't know if it should say like 6.83 million, like an M. Instead of all the all the.
Then are you suggesting if, then on the 100,000, 300,000, that there'd be a K?
It's a smart community. I think we can leave it as is.
It just looks like so much.
Because
It is.
Because it is so much. And I guarantee you, somebody's going to go through and total all these projects, and it's going to be some comments about it.
$1 billion
Yeah.
probably.
Well, when we started our master planning last time, the master planning 1.0 in 2015, what was the total cost of those?
It was 100 plus, yeah. Million. So we're chipping away.
Is this lower? Is this lower? I haven't totaled it, but I'd be shocked if this is well over 100.
37.
Maybe not.
Maybe it's not.
Yeah, it's not because we don't have the big buildings. Yeah. Yeah, it helps when you remove 24 million and 8 million.
We'll total it up before it goes out, so we.
Like I said, I'm sure somebody's going to get you up to speed on that.
Yeah, I'm thinking the tennis court thing looks real good right now.
Yeah, so other than that, if everything is in fact approved this evening, then again, we'll, by the end of March, get the survey out, and we will ask for it to be returned likely within 2 to 3 weeks, and so we'll have the results back before April 22nd, and then school perceptions will work on outlining all of those results and getting them to us for a report back to the board.
So for the updating the softball and baseball fields, are we not doing lights with that? Because it's not listed.
I believe lights are included, I just don't know that we put them in.
I thought lights were included too, but it's not listed. It probably it should be listed if it is.
Because I think that's
Yeah,
one of the
it's,
things.
well, it's LED field lighting for the softball field. It's a little different for the baseball field because we have the infrastructure already put in.
Well, no, you'd still put LEDs in, and you would.
I would add that, because I
Yeah.
think that's like a plus.
That's more important than the turf, quite
Yeah.
honestly. In my opinion. Maybe Ryan's got different thoughts on it. But
It's the same price range.
Because I think it was included with the package, I just don't see it
Yep.
listed. I just think that's one of the things people are looking for.
So the way that they have it described is LED field lighting, is that the verbiage?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Do you think we need any more descriptors about this Valentine gym? Because it really doesn't say, like, should it say field house, or should it say?
It's not a field house.
It's not, we're just adding a gym.
So it was
The
just that
equivalent of a gym.
expansion out?
It's an extension, correct.
Okay. So is a field house thing not on here?
It's not a field house, it is the
The outdoor practice facility, is that what you're
indoor
referring to?
practice
It was like
facility.
on the, out-
The indoor, yeah. That's on here, that's the big one, 8 million.
which one is it?
The multi-purpose indoor
That's
turf
turf,
The
yeah.
second
area.
one's from the bottom.
7.8 to 8.6.
I guess I wouldn't have thought that that's what that was.
What's
Do
the
we
difference-
have these like labeled in the picture?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what's the difference between that and an actual field house?
Field house is hard surface typically, basketball courts, everything else. This is more like the McLean Center.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
So this is going to go out in the mail by the end of the month?
I believe that's the intent.
So if for some reason it's delayed, like past April, whatever the date is?
We're going to be getting it back before the 22nd?
Well, no, if it's gonna go past April 2nd, for some reason, which is only a couple days past that, if they're delayed, remove my name.
Okay.
Are they, I know when the guy was here, we talked about the QR code.
Or remove it now, either way. It's up to the board if they want it or not.
We took all of ours off and leave yours on.
Yeah.
Really, do you know if he's gonna put a QR code on it? I thought he talked about it.
I don't know. I'll have to follow up.
I just think it's an easy way to take a survey. Isn't it?
They've never put them on before on any of the surveys.
Yeah. Survey.
can't remember how mobile-friendly their surveys are.
Well, QR code, you just take your picture.
No, I understand how it works. I'm
Yeah.
saying if their site's not formatted to be,
For you to
It's
actually
a
use your.
website, though.
I understand that, but if the website's not formatted for mobile, they're more of a detriment than anything else to try to do on a, if you try taking a survey on a phone that hasn't been designed for a phone, it's god-awful.
Yeah, but when you're doing a QR code, it's a website, so you're gonna be pulling up the website.
But the website has to be
Phone.
designed for mobile use. It converts.
If we were to do a quick read, I would only do it for informational purposes.
Yeah, I would caution them against it. There's a reason they don't do them.
I've been
I
on
don't know what
sites
it
where
is.
he's
No,
trying
he
to do that.
mentioned that he was gonna do it when he was talking.
You can check with him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, he did say, I just don't see it on here.
But again, if their site doesn't format to mobile use, we don't want it. I'm guaranteeing you it's a mess.
So we have you reviewing this, and when we had the survey developed for our referendum, we didn't necessarily go to the community. We didn't have like a parent focus group or anything. Is that something the board, because of the uniqueness of this, that we're not actually asking for a referenda? It's sort of a unique survey. We do have a parent advisory meeting, but it isn't until May, where we could gather other parents prior to that if there's some interest from the board, or if you're fine with this, that's fine with us too. I don't know if the timing is more important to get it back before or right after Easter, or if we push it out because we want to have a different group look at it. But it's up to you.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with the way it is. I mean, you want to know, right? We want to know, so get it out. Every month I look at it, I want to change something, and after about 3 months, it's back to the first month, and then it's like, so.
Yeah. The more you look at something, the more you want to change.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I've had my comments, had my shot at it, so I'm fine.
Same? Correct, you're the same?
Yeah.
All right, so you got everything we need down here? All right.
Thank you.
So.
Well, do we need to vote on it, though?
Yeah, we will.
Okay. I thought we were shooting high that.
No. Just taking a last look myself.
Sorry.
All right, so the motion right now is to approve it as presented. Can we have somebody change that motion? Who made the motion?
We had
So make the motion to...
Terry and Brett.
So make the if you guys would amend your motion to approve it with changes as discussed.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Motion to approve it with changes discussed.
Second, yeah.
All right. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes. Moving on to 7D, pole vault approval.
Motion to approve the addition of a pole vault runway and pit at a cost of $36,396 to be funded from the high school building budget.
Could someone make that motion?
So moved.
2 seconds. All right.
Bob?
All right. So we can get a demonstration of the pole vaulting here tonight? And who's doing it?
Is our insurance up to date?
Do it on the street, that way we don't care.
You're going to sign a waiver.
I would really love to see that, actually. Mr. Irvine?
So Mr. Irvine can give us a little background on why it's important to get the pole vault in as soon as possible, and if we're able to approve it, we can get it in and ready for spring competition.
So I'll try to be brief and then I'll allow other questions. But so this last couple of weeks ago, we had about 250 student athletes out for track and field. There are 18 events in track and field on both boys and girls side. We can compete currently in 17 of the 18 events because we've not yet invested in those facilities. The pole vault is an event that is competed at all WIA sanctioned events. So right now we are currently unable in this absolutely stunning, beautiful facilities to host WIA regionals or sectionals because we don't yet have that facilities. We have, I believe, 15 girls who wanted to pole vault. We have a really cool contingency of girls who have invested and their families have invested of going to private clubs to train in this event so they can compete. But unfortunately, the equity piece of that kind of hurts my heart because it's kind of separated our families who have means and who can afford for this private club. And our coach has gone above and beyond to actually transport some students during the season to drive to our neighbors to utilize their facilities so some kids can actually compete in this event. Again, when I think about those wonderful state championships that we won in the conference titles that we compete towards, we are at a huge competitive disadvantage in that we don't have the facilities to help our athletes train. This is an event that there's scholarships for. It's an opportunity for more of our warriors to get connected and an opportunity to find that thing that has them hooked into being in that co-curricular that we've seen through our own data that helps them stay highly engaged in being a warrior. We've been conservative this year. We have the funds to do it. We actually have a huge contingency of athletes that would benefit if we can move forward and approve this. We've worked with contractors that we can make this happen. So what we would need is an approval to move forward. And this is the short version. I can talk more.
I was going to say, it's too long already. So what you're saying, so what you're saying is you have the money from a budget we've already approved, and you have a contractor lined up, and you can have this done this year. Anyone have any objection to this?
I'm just curious, where are you going to be putting them?
Run along Woods Avenue on the far north end. If you were to run down the runway of the long jump, go through that, we'll put it further to the east of that.
And will you be testing it out once it goes
I'm in, and I'm open to give lessons as well as Coach Britt. So,
I mean, we did have pole vault here at one time. Why was it stopped? Just for...
I'm sure he can't answer that the way he'd like to.
Great question.
But since it became a WIA sanctioned event, when did it become sanctioned?
Or girls. So it used to be boys only at the WIA meet prior to, I believe it was 2000. So now it's added a whole nother wave. But one of the factors that contributed to some schools dropping it, they expanded the pit size. So districts had to reinvest an additional amount of money, and then there was this fear that they might continue to grow the size of the pit to where you'll never be able to buy a pit big enough. Well, they realized that that's not really the case. Physics comes into play, and there's only so much area that you need to safely land. So that happened one time, but it would have involved an investment back at that point to get our pits up to regulation size, and the choice was.
And it was never brought to the board, so they just did it. So it
Because
wasn't.
I know we used it for our football team.
So, and also Jeremiah did some background with the city. So you want to just give an update on?
Yeah, so the city said that because of the disturbance of being less than an acre, we don't have to apply for any permitting. And I think the project can probably be done in about a day, so there won't be much disturbance at all.
What can they do in one day that justifies $36,000?
Well, it's still...
See, now here's where you're talking yourself out of the project.
You got the poles,
Yeah, the equipment is probably tremendous.
Yeah, the equipment is actually $18,900 of it. The asphalt of it's less than $14,000.
Okay.
So, but we still can't do track events at our track, right? Because our track is not serviced correctly?
We can.
Well, we can now.
They resurfaced it this last year or 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, all right, because I know that was an issue.
They invested in that as well, and that's where, again, it is an absolutely amazing facilities. I think about what we can present our community as, and again, when you go to a WI sectional track and field, you have about 2,000 families from all over the area. It's a really powerful community event where we can showcase all the amazing things our community has invested in.
So I'll support this as long as when Ryan goes to the next WIA thing, we start talking about javelin.
There's no extra liability with this. For Chaplain, we might have.
Are there any boys that are interested in doing football games?
Yes. Javelin's cheap, it's just the javelin. And a big open field. We don't even do the hammer throw anymore. Javelin, almost every other state has it.
It's something we've sort of missed. It would be great for our student athletes.
This is the highest enrollment for their track program in a number of years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Sorry, any other questions?
I really can't go home if I don't vote yes, so I'm kind of being pained here by my daughter. I better vote yes.
This answers the question that people are actually watching this at home.
Yeah.
He's being texted. Family time, family home to watch TV at the Bruckmasters.
Hey, real nice.
Dad at the meeting.
Too funny.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Dig a pit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7E, ECCP and Start College Now application.
Motion to approve $19,451.01 for Start College Now and Early College Credit Program courses. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Essentially, is this the old
This is the former youth
Youth option.
course options. So these students are accessing college credits while in high school, and they are accessing classes that we do not offer at Muskego High School. So one of the stipulations is that if we have a comparable class, that it's not an option for students. So as we ramp up our academic and career planning, and our students are more aware of what their options are and what their interests are, we're seeing some really specific classes that kids are signing up for. We continue to see the CNA program grow. We have a couple of kids who have some really specific interests in the area of criminal justice. So you're seeing some police organization, patrol and traffic procedures. That's all one student who's interested in that area. Student who's interested in going to MSOE for actuarial science and is accessing some freshman level coursework for that. Engineering, organic chemistry. Again, classes that we don't offer on site, but are in line with their academic goals.
I'm curious what the $6, is it $6 for insurance for the CNA? What is that about? Because usually it's covered within the school tuition.
Is it because we're not students, sir?
I'm not sure. It's the only course that has it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what.
Any other questions?
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to discussion items. 8A, 2019 budget assumptions. Julie, got something for us?
A little bit. So in the in board docs, I did just a little write-up on the budget process. So obviously, we don't have a budget as of yet. The governor has proposed, as Brett had mentioned, proposed the really the fair funding formula as part of his proposal moving forward. So we have to take a number of different assumptions that are out there, kind of look at what the budget could end up doing based on a number of different scenarios. And so we've tried to narrow down 4 scenarios, and within each of those looking at different enrollments to look at the span of what could be for us by October, hopefully by October. So that's just the overview written out above. Looking at the expenditure assumptions, so right now we're looking at health and dental insurance at 0, a 0% increase. Right now we're running really well with our self-funded health plans, and that does include the cost of a clinic and ATI. And so as of right now, we're not making any projections to increase health insurance. If we do have to see an increase, we'll also consider looking at plan changes to absorb some of that increase, and we could bring those forward, as well as look at what that increase could be to our system. So right now, we're leaving that at 0. Utility increases by 2%. We have built-in salary increases. Again, we align those to CPI as well as the compensation models that are existing within our system. And then transportation, you'll see this a relatively large increase. And again, this is the result of us going out to bid for transportation services. Overall, the bids came in relatively close, but they were significantly above where we were at. And so we have built that transportation cost into our budget moving forward. So the next thing I'll do is go through the different scenarios. So you do have another attachment in board docs. It's a colored document. We like those variety of color documents. We'll look at the 4 different scenarios, so you can see the impact of the different assumptions on the tax levy. Within each of these scenarios, we are able to, with our assumptions that exist, as well as the monies that would come through the state, we are able to present a balanced budget within each of the scenarios. So we're mainly looking at tax levy impact today. So the first scenario is in the orange, and that's the categorical aid increase only. So this is what we're most familiar with seeing the last couple years from Walker's budget. So we don't get any new revenue limit money, but he gives it to us in the form of categorical aid. And what that does is it gives us more money. However, it doesn't impact taxes the way that a revenue limit increase would. And so in these scenarios, you'll see we get no money per pupil. We get no equalization aid change, but we do get $200 more per student. And the impact of that is a decreasing tax levy. It's a relatively small decrease as compared to the other ones. Any questions on that scenario? Okay, the second scenario is what the governor actually proposed, and these are just the main proposals in the formula. There's so many different things that he went through, but this is just from a very 30,000-foot perspective. So in his proposal, he's actually proposed changing the revenue limit, so giving us $200 more per student, which actually grows that pie that we talk about. Within that, though, there's also an increase in equalization aid. So as we're growing that pie, the concern is if we're getting money to grow, but we're not getting any aid, our tax levy is going to go up. Well, in this scenario, he's actually proposing that we get aid to support the increase. And then with each of the enrollment scenarios, you'll see that the tax levy will decrease because we're getting the aid to support the revenue limit increase. That makes sense? The third scenario is a variation of what the governor's proposed budget could end up with, because as you saw in the write-up, it still has to go through both houses and kind of back and forth between all the different parties involved. And so we could come up with a compromise. In scenario 3, it's kind of our worst case scenario on the levy side. We would get the per pupil increase as proposed by the governor, however, no equalization aid increase. You'll see the tax levy increases slightly in all of our scenarios. And then the fourth scenario is a categorical and equalization aid increase. So let's say the governor doesn't get the revenue limit increase to increase the pie, but he does give us equalization aid and does give us categorical aid. You'll see in that scenario, it's actually the best for us because it would create the best tax impact moving forward. So as we look at all of these scenarios, again, we can present a balanced budget moving forward, given the assumptions that are listed here. And when we look at the tax levy impact, we always talk about tax levy and what does that look like. And we want to maintain a tax levy that's as consistent as possible, because if we have one that's constantly going up and down and up and down, it just creates instability. And so having something that's as stable as possible was what we really like to see. And so we've talked about in the past, if we have an increasing tax levy, how we can possibly bring that down. And in this scenario, like in scenario 3, where we have an increased tax levy, we could use Fund 39 fund balance. Again, this is kind of what we did in the past, where you're using the fund balance that exists to pay down principal, and you don't have to levy as much, so that helps lower your levy. However, that would take about $600,000 to be able to bring that levy down to 0. So as we think about diffusing money in the future and how much of that fund balance we're using, and again, we'll have that discussion in June, if we don't leave enough money in fund balance, we could see a slight increase to the tax levy. and we'll have to have some conversation about what that looks like. In the other scenarios, where we're seeing, slightly more of a decrease, we have options to levy funds for additional defeasance options. So if we wanted to keep the levy relatively stable, we could levy additional funds for debt, knowing that we will specifically use up those to pay down the principal sooner, saving us interest earnings in the future. And so when we have huge swings, we have some options both ways to help manage the levy.
When you're talking a change in levy, are you talking like 1 or 2%, or are you talking maybe 5 or 10%?
1 or 2.
1 or 2?
Yep, so they're all listed in the colored document. It's the last column. You can see the different scenarios. So it does have a slight range,
Okay.
Depending. And I highlighted, I guess, in bold, in the red box, that is the governor's proposed budget. So that's what's gone forward so far. But if we were to assume nothing changes, we just kind of continue on moving forward as we have in the past. That orange box is what could be. Again, in each of the scenarios, we'll bring forward a balanced budget. The FTE, if we had 50 students lost, 50 students gained, or nothing in between, that's all manageable. So we've not seen anything more significant than that in the past. So those are really our ranges from best case to worst case scenario for enrollment.
So when it says -3, it's actually a positive?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what?
Well, it's positive.
Like it makes the levy go up?
No.
No, the negative is it's positive from a good thing that the levy's going down.
Okay, got it.
And when I said 1 or 2%, I was only talking about like the increase would only be 1 or 2%. There is a percentage of that's higher than that for the negatives. Yeah, but that's a negative number.
Yeah.
So any questions on any of the scenarios? So we'll continue to monitor what's happening at the state level and monitor the changes that are being made. The process itself, though, as we bring forward a budget to you, it will be something within range of all of these scenarios. The governor could potentially not approve a budget till October, so it's possible we could be going into the school year technically without a budget. But again, because within all of these scenarios, which we feel are best case, worst case, we know that we can balance the budget. We don't feel that we have to worry too much about getting to October and having to cut $2 million. Like, we're not in that situation in any of these scenarios. So we feel comfortable bringing forward a budget. We can talk about the impact to the levy as we get closer to that time.
So if they don't approve a budget, which is entirely possible considering likely.
It happened when Doyle was governor.
Yes. And they don't get a budget signed by the time we're supposed to approve our levy. You will have something at least that we can work with, I assume, right?
Yeah, in the past, when that happened, they actually extended the date the levy was due to give us flexibility, but we will be at the annual meeting as close as possible to what we believe. And really by that time, you've kind of seen the process going through and you're closer to what assumptions are being made or what people are voting on at the different levels, and so you have more of an idea. But we potentially would have to have another board meeting. Like usually at the annual meeting, we have the one after where we approve the final budget. It may be postponed. And we would have to approve it at a future meeting. But the law changes to allow for that.
Are you back by then? Are you back from your leave?
I intend to be back at the annual meeting,
okay.
Yes. Yeah, we've talked about it.
Good deal. Not that I want to shorten your maternity leave.
Any other questions?
So on April 16th, we'll be bringing back the budget assumptions for approval so we can, kind of hone in on that, and that's what we'll be building the budget on, and then as things change, we can bring that back to the board.
Any requests for any changes in the meantime, or not changes, but scenarios, or?
Anything crazy you want to run?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Item 8B, handbook changes. Who gets this one?
That's me as well. This year we haven't had as many handbook changes. I will point out and go through a couple of them. We put a draft of the handbook in for your review. A couple things to note, and I'm going to go by the page numbers that are listed on the handbook itself, not on the PDF. So on page 8, if you remember, when we talked about vision insurance, so vision insurance is an option for our employees now, but it's completely 100% elective. So we just put it in, similar to short-term disability, the district pays for nothing, but it's an option for our employees. And then scrolling down to page 13, we felt it was important to include training. So right now we use a module where all of our staff do training modules. One thing that's always hard is enforcing the completion of those, and so this just gives us the ability to have disciplinary action if people aren't going through and doing the modules, which are really important for safety oftentimes. On the next page, we talk a little bit more about our timekeeping system. So just some clarification for employees about using the time card system, some of the flexibilities that they have and the expectations that exist. It's something we didn't have in before, and as we have a lot more part-time people turning over, it's just easier to have clarification in the handbook that we can refer people to when it comes to the timekeeping system. And then we have our big one, which Ryan has stuck around here to talk with us about. So getting down to page 19, we're talking about co-curricular activities. So if you remember last year, we pulled out the athletic compensation to be reviewed separately and then taken out of the handbook. And then the Human Resource Department maintains that salary schedule for hiring purposes. Excuse me, this year we've moved forward with making a recommendation for our activities compensation model. Again, taking it out of the handbook. And if you go back into board docs, there is a separate model proposal. And Ryan, I think I'll invite you up if you don't mind in case there are any questions. But what you'll notice is the compensation model for co-curriculars is very similar to the way that the athletic model was designed, in that there's different tiers or different bands or tiers of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for what activities belong in which tier, as well as bands of experience. And I can let you speak a little bit more to the tiers and the bands and why we've separated those out similar to athletics.
Yeah, so it's more about really with our activities, it was kind of all over the board and tried to apply a similar structure to what we already supported and valued and looked into last year at this time with athletics, and trying to take a look at a whole bunch of various factors in terms of time, revenue generators, performances, those types of things. But you start looking at those with high time variables in terms of prep, student hours, year-round programming. Then you start talking about those that generate revenue, and then you have your service groups, and then you have your more strictly academic type groups, extending certain academia of the classroom, and then your support groups that are kind of intertwined in and amongst various different groups down towards the bottom. But it's a balancing act, just kind of like it was with athletics, but very similar in terms of performance based as opposed to just solely based on years. And what are we doing with our programming? How are we driving up numbers? Are we recruiting new kids to enroll? Are we putting on performances for the community or inviting other schools in? Hosting tournaments at our place, those type of things. So there was a lot to it, but I think we built a structure that's allowed us to have sustainability and roll with ebbs and flows of interest of various different groups coming in and out of our schools. And I thought it was good, but I also made it so.
As a reminder, the compensation itself for athletics and activities, athletics changed last year, but activities, all salaries have been frozen since 2011, so staff members really who have done activity work and oversight have not seen increases. And so this, Ryan spent a lot of time looking at median across the region to make sure that the different groups and organizations that we had comparable salaries, so we're at median. for those. And so this schedule is built around what median looks like for those different levels, and then gives us some flexibility, as he mentioned, to move people through depending on performance and use of service.
What were the comparables, or how did you pick them?
So we reached out to, the one thing with activities where athletics was very clean cut, we knew we were well behind in the athletic world. It took some time and some digging to work with local Classic A schools to send us their data on what they're compensating their advisors with, or how they're compensating. And again, we had, in our old pre-Act 10 model of activities, we had 9 different tiers of various different percentages with very different stipends added to it, and it was kind of hard to follow a little bit. And a lot of school districts, really, they're all over the board. So we reached out to Classic A. Mr. Peterson also was able to pull, I called it the Greater Milwaukee 32, some of the front-end school districts around the Greater Milwaukee area. And then we were also able to dig up Waukesha County data from, shoot, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, something like that, but it gave us another comparison point because our district wasn't unlike a lot of districts where post-Act 10, everything kind of got frozen in the co-curricular world and readjusted, and now everybody's redoing anything and everything when it comes to co-curriculars from here to Green Bay. Had a conversation with the De Pere School District up there and what they're doing in West De Pere, and some of the investments that they're starting to make, because again, it goes back to the statement that I made before about how can we get those impactful people that can do more for us and be a superstar and handle all the additional duties, but to continue to connect kids outside the classroom and again drive those academic numbers and all the data that comes with it. So we had to dig a little bit, but I think we've got to a really good place, and we got to a place where maybe we weren't able to compare ourselves to, depending on the color activity, like athletics. You can compare it to 9 different schools across the board because everybody has almost all the same things. Where maybe we were only compared to 5 of the 9, but that's the only 5 that offer what we offer. And again, what's most important to our community and what do we value is really our activities. Things like robotics, the boards felt very passionate about the opportunity for robotics a few years ago, and then adding that in. Not everybody has robotics, but we do, so let's embrace it and make it as best we can. So. Does that answer the question?
A lot of words, not direct, but.
Is there a way, if a person was doing an activity, that they could go to you and ask for more compensation if they came to you and said, you know, I'm doing this club, I'm putting in X amount of hours, and it's really kind of playing out to being, you know, $10 an hour, or whatever, you know, like, just kind of play it to you that they're putting in this work, and that could actually change, or are these kind of set in stone, or how does that work?
I think from a sustainability standpoint, these are kind of set in the usability piece. Is there various different hourly rates within our system? Yes, they are, but again, trying to get to more stipended work and performance based. If you're doing X, Y, and Z, then hopefully you're moving to that next band, as Julie alluded to, as we go through the process. So it's not, and again, I think it, yes and no, but.
I'm just curious if you, let's just, for instance, say it was yearbook. Yearbook came to you and said, you know, this year we had to reformat everything because the program that we used wasn't the program that we're using this year to put the book together, and we spent, you know, an additional amount of, you know, and could that possibly move to one for a year because they did have it? No.
So
I think I think the idea is to maintain consistency, and I think with every activity, there's going to be years where there's more put in or less put in, depending on if you're establishing it for the first time, if you've been doing it for 20 years. I think that there's going to be some flexibility, but I think that experience and the amount of work has been factored into which of those 5 tiers they're in. And so the salary varies in each of those tiers based on some of that work. And so I think that's been thought about. And I think if we spend too much time moving people up and down and back and forth, that eliminates the consistency.
It's bad practice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just, because this is the first time you're putting this together, that I'm just curious, I mean, are you doing it just as, like, let's this is a trial for a year to see if it's at the right. I'm just nervous that there may be some that will have more time and effort put into it and they're not gonna get compensated for it. And then they'll just be like, forget it, I don't wanna do this.
But I think that's part of the model, though, in that if we find that that's happening, then we have to consider what that means. I mean, if we're having that position turnover every year, there's obviously an issue. But if it's one person and someone else picks it up and runs with it,
Right,
you know.
if I get that.
And nobody does any of this for the money.
Well, and I don't want anyone doing it for
I
money.
mean, really,
You know.
that's not the
No,
driver.
no, no.
So we want to be sure that it's fairly compensated, which is why we try to look at regional and other other groups that have the same activities. But you're right, it's hard with some of them that don't have all the same things.
And if there's a coach out there making $10 an hour for all the time they put in it, they're high paid, quite honestly. Because I've been a high school coach, and there's, with all the hours of everything you put into it, there's no way you're making $10 an hour.
I mean, did you get feedback from any of the activities people?
Yep, so we met with them 2 or 3 times. We had one really big one right at the end of last school year, where we kind of talked about what did our school board value, what do you value, what are we looking to do, and do you support us in taking a look at the activities to build something similar? And it was a unanimous yes, and so we started the process, and it was an ongoing process. Really, we started it 2 years ago, but again, this took time to search and make sure that we were where we needed to be competitive, but also drive positive change for Muskego.
So the one thing I'll caution you on is, you mentioned it twice now, school board priority or focus or something that, like, the board likes something. So we've never been surveyed as what we like and don't like and have priority on, what we don't have priority on. Just don't take a vocal board member saying, oh, I really like robotics, as an endorsement of the board saying, we want all the money stuck in robotics. And I'm not saying that we don't like robotics, or you know, that we're not all, just use it as an for instance on that. So just be careful on that.
Point taken.
And there's a process that the activities department goes through for new clubs too, that would come forward. So it is not a static environment. It's, you know, constantly looking at ways to meet student needs, and some things are going to fall off and some things are going to grow and change. So that's what we want. We want an environment like that. So this is a structure that will help us move forward, and we'll use a process if we need to change anything. So
We do that with every salary. I mean, I mean, it's not a dart at a wall, but I mean, every position from teaching to, you know, janitorial staff to everything in between that. You know, we set a number, and if we find out we can't fill that position, we revisit what that number is. So.
Well, I just wanted to be out there that you are looking at everything and taking that into consideration.
thank you.
So this model itself, again, placing everybody onto the model, they wouldn't make less, and we built the assumption of the cost of moving everybody into this model. We built that into the personnel budget, which was in the budget assumptions that were looked at earlier today. So, is there anything more you want to see for the model, or about the model, or any?
Can you just explain, what's the difference? It says head director and then it says MS head.
Middle school.
Oh, middle school.
I think this is a good starting point. I mean, obviously you said it's not static. It's a living document, so we'll...
Thank you.
So then, as part of the handbook, when you approve the handbook, you'll essentially be approving the model coming out and becoming a separate entity that we'll work through as part of the salary process every year. And then going back to the handbook, there was a couple other, when we talked about leave from teachers, we're trying to just try to align our practices to help us ensure that we're getting proper substitutes for teachers when they're out. So that's on page 24. Just some specific guidelines. We're just asking for more time. Jeff has done a lot of research and looked at data around our substitute fill rates and being able to increase those based on how much time we're giving notice to substitutes to be in the classroom. So I don't know if there's anything more you want to say about that.
The greater the time frame, the higher the fill rate.
How often do we have a situation where we don't have a position filled where there's a teacher out sick or?
So you're asking what do we do?
Yeah. Does it happen very often, or what do we do if it does?
So a multitude of things, depending on what level it is. Sometimes we have our instructional coaches that are going to fill in for the classroom teacher and take over that classroom, or they may share responsibilities amongst themselves with different coaches. Sometimes, given where the teacher is at with their curriculum and their pacing, they can have some of their colleagues that would support that. It doesn't happen very often, but those would be a couple of the options that we're taking a look at. We're also exploring other opportunities, knowing that we have online accessibility to learning. That's another option and potential that some of that could be delivered online through another adult that would support the learning through the day.
And then the last item is on page 27. One of the things that we found as we list out what the different tiers are for retirement, so again, as we transition to the different types of retirement benefits, we do have employees that were grandfathered into previous benefits, and so we have 4 different tiers. And one of the things that we found is as employees were in our system as part-time, they didn't get benefits, but then took on a full-time job and became eligible for benefits. But the retirement wasn't specific to state if you're already an employee in the system and you become full-time, that's the tier you're in for retirement. It's when you become full-time. It's not if you've been here 20 years, you get that first tier even though you've been part-time. So we just had to clarify language because we've had a couple employees transition, and that was a question that came up. Aside from that, there are no other changes to the handbook, so relatively simple this year. So we would be bringing this back at the next board meeting then for your approval.
There was leave days? Yeah, page 31. Paid time off should not be for more than scheduled hours. You had to write that?
Yes. It brings clarification
Okay.
for a lot of part-time positions when that comes into question.
Okay.
It's come up more than once this year, so again, with the number of part-time staff that we have, it's just easier to have them be able to refer people directly to the handbook.
Yep.
For consistency.
Which page is it on? I haven't looked through this whole thing where for school day or snow days and cold days that we had.
So each of the appendices is for a different work group. So Appendix A is professional staff. So if you go to page, get there. It's page 21 for teachers and professional staff. It's emergency school closures is the second paragraph. And then Appendix B and C are for the various support staff groups, and they each have different language because each work group is different. You know, for instance, the custodial group, there is some expectation that they're here helping to clear the sidewalks, and so everyone's a little bit different, but it's at the beginning of each appendix.
Okay. All right, so come back as consent agenda. If you have any questions, we can always pull it out and add and have discussion on it at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9, information follow-up. Any requests for information to follow up? I have one that you guys might be able to answer. I meant to bring it up during the pole vault pit discussion. So we have facilities in either the North Gym or the Salentine to practice indoors on that. And is that something you're going to be bringing forward at some point?
So there's many different ways that you can address the indoor training. So part of it is you don't have a long enough runway approach to get full approaches, so they do lots of plant drills against the walls. They do things on the floor, short approaches, and the coach can speak more to that. They also have portable plant boxes that basically you can put on like a carpet, so you can run and do a plant and then drive it across the floor. It's really the ability to get upside down and get vertical, and that we can wait till we're outside on. Theoretically, you could install a plant box inside. Some schools have that. More often than not, that can be handled with sometimes an internal crew. So I wouldn't want to do that necessarily on the Sal Gym floor, but our North Gym could be an option for something like that. But again, the runway space is pretty short.
Okay. Thank you. Any other requests for information? Hearing none, all those in favor? Actually, hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:40. Thank you, everyone.